We have been putting this webinar together in a quite short notice since we realized that there are some urgent things that we would like to discuss and communicate with you. So there might be some other falls through the way. I think the point is to exchange as much information as possible and let you know where you can find more information. As a practical note, few things, we will be recording this presentation and it will be published on the Business Finland YouTube channel so that you know. Since we are quite many people online today, we would only ask you to ask questions through the chat function. We have quite many people online helping us to answer any of the questions that are asked, and those that we don't have time to answer, we will answer afterwards. A couple of other practical things: please don't use video, use the audio connection, and mute your microphone if you're not the person presenting. Regarding the materials, all these materials have a lot of links to the further information and they are prepared for you so you can go and study further and find who to contact or where to find more information. And we will share it with you afterwards. Today's agenda, we'll start by introducing who's online from the team, who answers your questions today. Then we start discussing a little bit about what is the COVID urgent funding Business Finland is dealing at the moment. Then about our market opportunities service portal, what can you use that for in this scenario? We would like to discuss and highlight 3 of the categories where there is an urgent need at the moment in types of sourcing the products or sourcing some supplies related to these products. Finally, we'll discuss a little bit about the export limitations, other useful links, also how you as a Finnish supplier can become visible in terms of that you might have something to give to this current need in terms of how to handle the COVID crisis. And so we'll get back to that in the later part of the presentation. Today we are focusing on certain countries. I think this COVID is touching pretty much many of the countries simultaneously. So there is also a huge need in other countries and other products. We'll try to highlight some of those needs. And if we realize that this type of way of communicating is useful for you, then we are happy to do more of this kind of sessions. But let's see how it works, and we're of course happy to receive any feedback you might have. Just to give you a short heads up, we have Agnieszka from Poland, Daria from Spain, Eero from Australia, Elina from Germany, Janna from UK, Joni from Norway, Nima from Sweden, and Sanna from Austria, and then Eva from Finland. With us today, many of us in the global network of Business Finland, we have about the total staff of 145 people. We are placed in 43 different countries, and we are your eyes and ears on those markets. We try to follow very closely what's happening within these countries and what's going on. And in terms of this COVID crisis, we are together with the embassies trying to have the finger on the pulse to understand what is happening in our different countries in terms of what are the needs for the healthcare systems and where we are and what happens and if there's anything we can do to ease that pain. Before we go into details of the offerings and the needs, I would like to ask Eva to give us a little recap on the crisis financing of Business Finland. So Eva, please go ahead.
So I'm Eva Salminen from Business Finland, and I'm in charge of the funding and services for health and well-being startups in Finland.
Unknown participant is now joining.
Okay, Terhi, we lost the slides. At least I lost the slides from the screen.
I hope it's there. No, it's not there yet, or what? Okay, I will get back to the sharing it. I was just trying to just go ahead, Eva. I'll find it again.
Yes.
It's
yes.
coming.
So Okay, so concerning the current situation with the coronavirus and its effects to not only to our health and well-being, but also to the lives of companies and financials. It was launched about 2 weeks ago. The government of Finland launched a new funding for companies, and this funding is now given by Business Finland through Business Finland. And it's a new type of instrument and new type of funding for companies whose business is affected by this situation, by this financial and overall situation what the corona outbreak is bringing. You may have heard already about this funding, and this is just a short summary of it. It's for the Finnish companies and it's not industry specific, so almost any industry, companies from any industry can apply and can get the funding. The only restriction is that the funding is de minimis type of funding, so there is some restriction from that part for the companies. It's either it varies from 10,000 euros up to 100,000 euros. It's a grant, and it's a 80% grant, so 20% of the project cost is covered by the company itself, and the upfront payment of the grant is 70%. So we have figured out a way to maximize the cash flow effect from this funding to the companies. And because it's the minimis funding and it's Business Finland funding, there is some guidelines and restrictions for where to use the funding. So it's to investigate and search and do development measures in the companies to mitigate the business disruptions or to develop new services or develop the ways of working in the company. And the the internet address that is in this slide, it has actually all the relevant information about the funding, how to apply it. It's very easy to apply. No project plan is needed. Some financial figures from the company and also the description about the business, how it was before the corona crisis happened and how it has been affected, what measures to take. So what would be the project that Business Finland would be funding and how it's affecting, improving the business of the company. So very easy to apply. It's been very, the demand for the funding has been huge. In these 2 weeks, we've gotten as much applications as we usually get in 3 years time. So huge demand from the Finnish businesses for this type of funding, and it really tells us how this has affected all businesses, not only the ones that come up to our minds in first hand, but to very different businesses. Okay, I think this was like a very short summary about the funding. I can be on the line for a few more minutes, so if you have direct questions, you can put the questions into the chat and I'll be happy to answer. And please visit the website, and if you are already a Business Finland customer and you already have funding from us, you can of course contact your account manager or contact person from Business Finland and figure out other funding opportunities besides this corona funding as well.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, I think, yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Then moving ahead, before we go in the very concrete needs in this corona crisis, I just wanted to tell you few words about our market opportunities service, since that is the portal where we have chosen also to channel this type of requests for equipment, requests for material. But this market opportunities.fi site is certainly used for many other things. It's traditionally used for market needs and opportunities that we discover that are happening in maybe a rather slower place, slower phase than the current corona crisis. But this would be the place where you can find more information regarding what's going on in the world markets. In any given time, there are about 500 different items published on this site, and it's all free access. You can click and go and explore as you like and as you have the time. The items are produced in a Team Finland cooperation together with about 90 Finnish embassies and the 43 Business Finland offices globally. As you click on the site towards the different items, you end up on a site where there is a person's photo and the contact details. That is kind of your key into more information regarding the different items that you discover. And if you get some questions or are more interested to hear more, so please feel free to contact us, whatever you find from the site. Then if we go ahead and look at more of the concrete needs, we start by discussing the personal protective equipment. It is certainly very much needed in many places in the world. I'd like to give the word to Jouni in Oslo. He has promised to tell us a little bit more about this.
Hello, this is Jouni from Norway calling. So I'm just gonna tell quickly about the the needs we have identified in the global network in different countries, and the need of the personal protective equipment, or in short the PPE. It is quite huge. It could be the reason in some countries is that the dependence of, for instance, from the Chinese market, where there's difficulties of deliveries. But the need in different countries, it's basically focusing on moisture-resistant infection coats and different respiratory protection. For instance, these respiratory protection devices, they should be at least filter face piece status 2 or 3 classified. Then there are simple nitrile or latex gloves, different kind of goggles and visors, face masks, and also this is quite a good need what we have identified. It's a disinfection of the premises and different sanitizers as well. There's also need for 3D printing for different medical devices. Some of the medical parts are critical, and they can only be done or produced with the help of the 3D printing. And I'm not going to go through the central purchasing sites on the right side, but the centralized sites are on Sweden, Norway, Denmark, UK, Spain, Germany, and Austria. And for more information, you can ask from the team. We will send the team contact information to you later on, and then you will also get the email addresses afterwards. If you can give me the next slide, Terhi.
There it is.
And what is good also to know is that there are some restrictions or even bans. So it's really important that you check, for instance, what of the PPE are you allowed to export outside from EU or Schengen area. And for instance, from Finland, just the simple goggles or visors, you need to have a license from the social social and health ministry in Finland. So you need to apply a license if you want to export, for instance, surgical masks or visors or other personal protective equipment. So, but the full list is on the stm.fi homepages. There can also be some exemptions on the CE certifications. So if your equipment is not having the CE certification on it, it's not that serious, but still the quality requirements are the same. So it's advisable that you check the different markets at the EU market surveillance pages. And any questions of this? So it's just to contact stm.fi, and also I've understood that if the situation worsens, there might be other or the restrictions coming. So it's also recommended that you follow the stm.fi page. What will or if there is any restrictions or new bans that are coming.
Thanks, Jouni. Then going ahead to another topic that is very much in demand, it is any of the equipment regarding diagnostics, and we have Nima from Stockholm, supported by Janna from London. Please go ahead.
So, hello, Nima Jokilaksi here from Stockholm. So when it comes to the diagnostics and testing needs, there is currently also a need to increase the capacity. I'll just give you an example. In Sweden, in week 13, there was only 36,000 tests that had been done. And 2 days ago, the government went out and said that we need to at least double that capacity in Sweden. And that in order to double that capacity, we both need rapid testing kits. There also needs to be support in getting those testing facilities up and running. In SciLife Lab, which is the national research facility, they have received 50 million krona from Kurt Alice Wallenberg Foundation and received a lot of equipment. But one thing that there's a huge lack of is test pins. And this is both in the testing facilities and in other sites. So in order to actually get these testings up and running, we need to get test pins. I should also mention that here in Sweden, there are 2 field hospitals that are being that have been constructed, and one is actually tomorrow being opened up for ICU patients. And again, there is a huge lack of proper diagnostic and testing kits. So Janna, can you also give us an update from London, UK?
Janna, you're on mute, I think.
Nima, so very similar thoughts here and observations here in the UK. So NHS, there have been great efforts by the NHS and the industry to respond to a huge surge in demand for hospital beds and ventilators. For example, just today, the Nightingale Hospital, the world's largest field hospital, built within less than 2 weeks, is taking the first patients in. And the ventilator call has been also very successful and is not taking new applications at the moment. However, regarding this testing, like Nima was saying from Sweden, there has not been so much success at all in the UK either. In fact, this has been a very hot topic on the agenda last couple of days particularly. The situation yesterday was that nearly 200 proposals by top scientists had been sent in for antibody testing. But none of these so far has proved to be successful, that is accurate enough. So developing the antibody tests is thought to be taking much longer time than expected and hoped for. However, just last night, again, the government announced the new target to increase the testing capacity for swab tests from 10,000 per day currently up to 100,000 tests per day by the end of this month. Nima mentioned how much has been tested in Sweden. So here in the UK, currently 500, this was a figure given this morning, 500,000 NHS staff has been tested by today out of 1.5 million staff, and this was only 130,000 a couple of days ago. So it has been revamped drastically. There is no such like a specific open call on government pages for testing at the moment, but you can find the generic open call to support at any at COVID crisis with all kind of different proposals, and testing is on top of that list as well.
Thank you.
Can I add a
Yes.
final comment? I'd like to say that, and this is true both for UK and in Sweden, that when we look at these diagnostics, the primary target group right now is not actually the people in critical care, but it's healthcare professionals and elderly care professionals, other people also in critical societal roles, because in both of these countries we do have what is called societal spread, and in order for the society to function, we need to really quickly find out who in the healthcare professionals are actually infected. So this actually means that when we look at in Sweden, the overall responsibility to increase testing, that's for the public health agency, Folkhälsomyndigheten, but at the same time, the coordination of this is done by Socialstyrelsen, and you have seen the link. It's in one of the earlier slides there, how to contact in the correct way. So thank you.
Perfect, thank you. We will move ahead to another interesting phenomenon ongoing related to this COVID crisis. There has been really very huge and fast implementation of remote healthcare consulting through the remote solutions. And in order to introduce this topic to us, we have Elina from Germany and Agnieszka from Poland, followed by Eero from Australia. Please go ahead, guys.
Thank you, Terhi. So hello everyone, my name is Elina Isoja and I'm working as an advisor at Business Finland Munich office. Yes, a very interesting topic is of course also remote healthcare services, of which use is increasing tremendously due to corona crisis at the moment. In several European countries, like for example Germany, Austria, Norway, Poland and UK, there has been several intentions to increase the use of digital and remote solutions for a couple of years now basically, but the implementation has so far been rather slow. But now in the times of corona, the implementation of telemedicine in all infected countries has been extremely fast. For example, in Denmark, 3,500 family doctors went virtual in the time span of just 2 weeks. Another good example is Germany. Before the corona crisis, the use of telemedicine solutions was very low, and doctors also had limitations how many patients they could treat remotely. Now all limitations have been removed here, and the 18 certificated service providers are working 24/7 at the moment. And there has been also capacity problems with these service providers since the amount of video consultations has increased so much in the last few weeks. So the speed of digital transformation has been huge in the European countries during the corona crisis. And virtual consultations and other digital solutions will have a huge potential also in the future, since several other sectors, like for example mental health and elderly care, are seen also to benefit from these type of solutions. In Germany and in other European countries where the attitude towards digital transformation has so far been rather, well, suspicious, the benefits of these type of solutions are now clear to everyone, and it is to be expected that the demand for these solutions will also increase in the future. Now we will hear 2 more examples from the international markets, and we will start from Poland. So Agnieszka, please tell about the situation in your country.
Thank you very much, Elina. Hello, it is Agnieszka from Business Finland office in Poland. As Elina mentioned, yes, currently practically most of the barriers blocking functioning of the e-health and telemedicine have been removed in many countries like Poland. In case of Poland, right now almost 90% advices in both public and private clinics are provided remotely, including video visits. 2 weeks ago, the Polish National Healthcare Funds signed an ordinance extending financial of the digitalization of the services provided by primary care units. And this new ordinance gives possibility of the quick and 90% financed by the National Healthcare Funds, which is also introducing video advices by family doctors. The question is also what would happen next? So would telemedical effect of the current situation be our permanent phenomena? Well, when it comes to the telemedicine solution, in Poland, both medical staff and patient are very quickly learning how to proceed and how to implement the new tools. It's really fast process. The experts here claim that after the epidemic, it will be we will be able to transfer now very fast tested solution to the permanent treatment routine. So there are a lot of the elements that will help healthcare systems in Europe to function in the future as well. And after the pandemic, the telemedicine service will have completely different meaning than before, because coronavirus will strongly accelerate the further development of this market. But if you are interested to hear more in the mentioned markets, and Poland included, I would like to invite you, as Terhi mentioned before, to our portal of the market opportunities.fi with our contact details. Thank you.
Thank you, Agnieszka. And now we will go a little bit further away to Australia. Eero, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Elina. So my name is Eero Toivanen and I'm based in Sydney. And I have been following telehealth implementation for about 10 years. And now it has been done in 10 days in Australia for 25 million people. Australia spends 350 million euros to expand Medicare to cover telehealth services for all Australians, meaning digital access to primary health care services during the coronavirus pandemic. Australians will be able to access support in their own home using their telephone and video conferencing to connect with doctors, mental health treatment, chronic disease management, services to people with eating disorders, pregnancy support, physiotherapists, services to patients in aged care facilities. The new arrangement will be in place until the end of September. So if telehealth works, makes care more efficient, and gives cost savings, the arrangement will stay. And then the next wave of investment will be made to improve solutions. So you have 6 months to act. So please be in contact with me and let's look together some Australian vendors who are already providing these services and what kind of value that your solution brings for them and their customers. Thank you for listening.
Thanks, Eero. And then we'll move ahead to a little bit of a wrap of other needs that we have identified at this moment. And there we have Daria from Madrid with us. Go ahead, Daria.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Indeed, we have already discussed many needs in European Union and even in Australia, but then actually, it's not surprisingly, with the global expansion of the virus, these needs, they are traveling with the virus. So what we have identified, not only in Spain or within the European Union, but also in Kosovo and Peru, and Mexico, Brazil, it's a huge lack of ventilators mainly for intensive care units. Here we can talk both about invasive and non-invasive ones. And it's extremely big call for this particular type of product because ventilators have become essential equipment for providing treatment to the most severe cases of COVID. And basically all the countries, the health systems are facing a shortage of supplies. So it actually makes a good link to the 3D printing capabilities. And here I take a chance to address one of the questions in the chat. So what kind of 3D printed products are needed, and is there a list of consumables somewhere? So we can talk here about facial masks, for example, this plastic or transparent protection, facial protection again, or for example, it could be ventilators or some spare parts of the ventilators and so on. We do not have at the moment specific list, but we can compile it. And for example, in Spain, I can put in contact. And apart from the ventilators, we are talking about how to handle the hazardous waste. We're talking about hospital equipment, beds, and medical devices. Excuse me, my children came through, but now they're taken away. And we're also talking about mental health, which is extremely important issue, especially now in terms of this strong confinement, when basically half of the global population is closed down between the four walls. So taking it a bit further, yes, I would definitely encourage you get in contact with us, and we will, in our countries, we will put you together with those contacts or decision makers or organizations in charge of getting together the materials, supplies from different countries. But I would also encourage you to have a look at the new virtual matchmaking platform launched by AEN, which is the Enterprise European Network. This is a new initiative with an aim to put together demand and supply sides in relation to COVID-19 solutions and projects. So basically, that's it. Thank you for your attention and have a good evening. Bye.
And then maybe I would kind of build on your comments, Daria. There is also, in addition to the kind of national level approach, there is of course there is the EU, and then there's several of the United Nations organizations who are equally busy in trying to procure some of the materials. It can be hospital materials, ambulances, it can be ventilators and different type of equipments, and we do have access to these kind of lists explaining what sort of needs there are. So if those are within that type of product that you are able to produce, or if you are able to produce spare parts or able to do something else within your production line, then we are of course very much interested to hear and discuss and try to link you up with the right persons in the different markets. Then just shortly to share with you, we are sharing these links with you. It relates to the European Committee of Standardization. There are some standards especially related to the personal protective equipment that has been released so that it would make it possible and faster to produce these materials. So if you are within that sphere of business, then those might be useful links for you to know. Finally, in terms of how can you, if you have a product or solution, how can you make it visible to all these decision makers at the moment, since of course certainly this crisis is not the time where you can do sales calls or similar things, because these are urgent matters. What we are trying to do from our side is to collect all the knowledge and capabilities of the Finnish suppliers and Finnish industry into a portal we call the Finnish Suppliers Platform. It's within the Business Finland website. How we have done it is that you will get this information afterwards as well. But if you already are listed into the system, then we have a procedure where you need to request your personal link in order to go and update your information. And when you do the update, we would request you to add a tag word of crisis management to your solution, so that we would be able to sort out those solutions and those providers who are able to provide something in terms of this crisis management sub-theme. If you are a totally new vendor to the system, then there is another way of accessing the site, and it's also described here on the slide. But this is just to let you know that this is how we think it would be useful to get all this knowledge and capabilities collected and visible in one place, and then we can do ours to share it with those contacts that we have in these different countries. Okay, we promised to take a couple of the pre-submitted questions for discussion. There was one question related to ozone and whether that could be used as a disinfecting agent. It was successfully used in SARS epidemic. And then we have selected that Joni from Norway and Daria from Spain would comment on this question. Please, the floor is yours for short comments.
Yes, there, at least in Norway, there's a need for this, and there are some Norwegian operators as well. So there's a question about the ozonization, but if there's enough clinical evidence that any kind of gas, any type of gas, can safely, without harming the human or nature, can kill the virus and bacteria. So that kind of a technology is needed and wanted in Norway. So, and it's not limited, as it was mentioned earlier, it's not limited on the hospital premises, but it can also be, for instance, ambulances, ambulance helicopters, etc., etc.
Yeah, and the same. Thank you, Joni. So just to continue, in Spain, we know already that it's used. It's used for disinfection of buildings, both industrial, even home premises, anywhere where the virus was detected. And indeed, there is a big evidence that ozone is specifically, it's very effective against coronavirus. So there's a specific company who is doing that, and we actually featured last week in the largest Spanish newspaper.
Thank you. Then there was another question in terms of, does Business Finland provide assistance on how to apply for the EU funding, or what role does Business Finland play in terms of the EU funding? And I have a colleague, Hanna Rantala, online somewhere.
Yes.
Hanna, would you comment on that, please?
Yes, can you hear me? So this is
Yes.
Hanna Rantala, and I am a director for health and well-being programs here in Helsinki. Yes, we do have services for European programs and networks, and we have a special unit for that in Business Finland. Basically, Horizon 2020, Eureka Cost, Eurostars, for instance, are the programs we do help you with. And for Horizon 2020 for this year, and Horizon Europe starts on 2021. We do have different kind of services like sharing the information, materials, and instructions and advice for applying different kind of statistics, and also for Horizon 2020 we have national contact points also in Business Finland, but also in other organizations and special ones for health and well-being also. We also do have funding for preparing Horizon 2020 projects, and all those informations are found from our net site, and I will give you all the links on the chat afterwards. We are having a special webinar next week for Corona in Horizon, and it's going to be on April 6th. So if you go to Business Finland's website, you see the webinar in there. There you are able to get more information about that.
Thank you, Hanna. And then there is one question from the chat that I was going to read out loud. Joni from Norway, I think you might be able to help us out with this question. There's a question that is there a generic answer on how the EU export restrictions apply for Norway, Switzerland and EU accession countries?
Yes, there is a generic answer for that, and it is the link I put on the chat section, and I kindly ask you to go through the stm.fi. But in shortly, I would say that for instance, regarding licenses, it only applies certain type of PPE. For instance, goggles, visors, masks, etc. But if it's, for instance, more advanced medical device, you don't need to have the license for that. But the full list, it's in the link, and it applies. It's the same also for the EEA countries.
Thank you very much, Joni. I think we will proceed on wrapping up. So summarizing up what we have just discussed during this webinar. First of all, thank you for following and joining us. What you can do, you can of course go and register on the Finnish supplier side. Keep eye on the marketopportunities.fi and contact us if you find something interesting or you have some other additional questions as a follow-up of this webinar. If you are working on something innovative or something exceptional within this space, please do let us know. We are contacted all the time by different health authorities and hospitals and different players, and they are really looking for some particular things, mostly within those kind of spare parts or other new producers of materials that they are having difficult time of sourcing. So please reach out to us. In a Business Finland, we are planning several different workshops extending this corona crisis from maybe also from the urgent needs to a more to the longer term perspective, because this will of course also have some effects in the longer term. Obviously in the healthcare system there are several other activities that are currently postponed, and they will have to be carried out at some space when the dust settles. There might be some specific needs rising up from that horizon. There is also most likely this is changing the world a little bit, at least in terms of using the remote health solutions. So within that space there will be new ideas and new things to think about. And then finally, thirdly, looking at kind of cross-sectorial work and cooperation. There are a lot of things that can be done together and things that can be done together in a new way. There are certain industries that are now having maybe needs for healthcare knowledge or products or medical grade type of equipment. So we will of course try to communicate these things and also invite you to workshops as the time goes. Finally, there is the Business Finland Corona page that Eva also mentioned in the early on this webinar. And perhaps to conclude, we will shortly share all this material with you. We will share the recording with you and the feedback formula. We would very much like to thank you for attending to this important topic, and very much encourage you to reach out to us if there is anything we can do in terms of connecting the dots within this situation. Thank you very much for joining.